You wake up one morning and you find that there's a massive truck body that's crashed into the side of your building. So Paradise Palms Motel is a nice little motel based in Mulwala. It's on the border of New South Wales and Victoria. It sits on the Murray River. They had a bit of an issue one day when a truck trailer detached from its coupling and went careening into the side of their building. So the insured was a nice young couple. They'd owned the business for a couple of years. It had been established a couple of decades. So imagine yourself buying a business with your husband or wife, and it's ticking along pretty well, and you've got a couple of young kids, and you wake up one morning and you find that there's a massive truck body that's crashed into the side of your building. And what do? You call your insurance company, no doubt, and hopefully you've taken out enough cover and the right sort of cover to cover you for this kind of thing. What does your insurance company do? Well, at least in this case, they called us. The motel is one of these classic Australian motels which has an awning at the front of the premises that you park your car in as you turn up to reception so that you can, go and collect your keys and, get in for the night. It was being supported by 4 posts either side of it, 4 steel big posts, very tall, to accommodate caravans and the like that could drive in and through to the rest of the motel. So this truck trailer comes off its coupling or whatever it was. It was actually the trailer itself had detached from where it's supposed to hitch up to, so that it actually snapped in the middle of the chassis. And the trailer, of course, had a massive excavator on it, so good 20 tonnes worth of weight and machinery come hurtling into the building, and being the Paradise Palms, it hit one of the palms and deflected to then come into the building itself. 3 of the posts out of the 4 had some level of damage to it. The first post was completely severed from its connections and completely absent. The second had a very large kink in it and was doing absolutely nothing for the structural support of the awning. And then the third was also fairly badly kinked and you wouldn't want to stand underneath it. So they called a local builder and, they were told, try and do the best you can to prevent anything from getting worse, do what you're required to do under the policy, which is do a make safe. And all the builder could really do was set up some temporary fencing around the side of the building, which had the effect of making the building look like it was closed. It was cyclone fencing right around the side of the building, but you could still drive in and out and effectively underneath this awning / carport. So realistically, the cyclone fencing wasn't doing much for them. But what it really meant was that they weren't having any drop-in customers, and I could see why when I first turned up. Their business looked closed. To see the carport on site, more or less, it was almost as if it was twisting on itself. So you've got the 4 poles either side, 3 of which are knocked out on one side, and then therefore the rest of the roof structure is basically bending to keep it from falling over on itself. I thought nobody in their right mind would want to get underneath this thing. I asked the insureds, had any of the insurers' people been out there to have a look at the structure, and they said, yeah, an engineer had been out there. And I said, well, what did the engineer say? So the engineer's opinion was that with a lot of work and effort, it would seem this structure was capable of being salvaged. But when I saw this structure and how high it was and how it was built and how it was just hanging there, sort of flailing in the wind, I called up the builders that had appointed this engineer, and fortunately we had a fairly good working relationship, and I was able to get in touch with the person who had organised for this engineer to attend. And I said, look, can you tell me what the engineer is saying in terms of how this structure could be actually salvageable? And he started talking about needing cranes and, all sorts of heavy equipment to try and prevent this thing from falling over. And I just said, isn't it going to cost you more to try and save it than it is to start again? Well, who's actually going to get up there and try and prop this thing and get underneath it to try and save this thing in the first place? And he's like, well, yeah, that's a pretty good point. So I said, look, get rid of it. Get a crane, get rid of it, make it safe. It's not worth saving. It'll be too much of a headache to try and save it in the first place. I guess the flip side to that is getting rid of this structure meant that we could remove the cyclone fencing, we could remove this massive safety risk that was hanging over the entranceway of this motel, and almost instantly the drop-ins, the customers resumed coming back into the motel. It was a win for the insurer. They got to stop their loss of profit claim, virtually instantly. It was a win for the insured. They got their business back on track, and they were able to use some of the funds to reinvest into the rest of their business, and discovered something about their business which they now focus on to promote, which is the fact that it's a really beautiful building, and it really is a kind of paradise. And I guess it was a win for us as well. I got out there, was able to apply my expertise, build on the relationships that we already have, and sort out what could otherwise be a pretty complicated and lengthy loss into a very short, sharp, simple claim.